Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle and I'm the owner of Damn Fancy Creations and the Drunk Flamingo Glitter. In today's tutorial, I am going to be showing you guys how I created this fun fall tumbler with inks, liquid gold, and vinyl. I want to let you guys know beforehand that it took a lot of steps to get this tumbler to the end result. Y'all know I always like to show you guys my mistakes and how I fix them, just in case you guys have trouble along the way. Y'all will see that there is always something you can do to improve your tumbler and still end up with a really good end result, even if it's not what you had in mind originally. Don't forget to check the description below where you will find all items needed to recreate this tumbler, as well as discount codes from my favorite suppliers. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on my latest tutorials. If you guys are ready to see how I created this fun fall tumbler, let's get started. Alright y'all, so we are going to start with a 16-ounce junior from the Tipsy Magnolia. I went ahead and taped off my bottom rim and spray painted it with a flat white paint. I typically use Rust-Oleum 2 times. And I went ahead and pre-cut my vinyl. This is a floral pattern that I offer on thedrunkflamingo.com. I will link it down below. And since this is a pretty thin piece of vinyl, I'm not necessarily doing my typical hinge method because I can easily just place it on there and adjust it slightly if needed. So once I have it on pretty straight, I am just kind of following the edge of the tumbler and then right where the curved part starts. And I'm just lining it up as best I can. And then when we get to where the pieces match up, I'm just going to trim it. And if you guys have watched my tutorials before when I'm doing vinyl wraps, I like to try and disguise the seam as much as possible. That way everything just looks cohesive. You don't see a line going down the center of your tumbler. So I like to take a piece of the scrap vinyl that I used, because you will typically always have leftover vinyl when you're doing a wrap. And I'm just cutting out one of the elements. So for this particular cup, I'm just cutting out one of these floral elements. And once I get it trimmed out, I am just going to place it right over that seam. Now, when you choose an element, you do want to make sure that it is large enough to cover the area that you want. Sometimes I will trim out a couple different elements. So I'm just going to place this on there, and then if I need to, I will trim off some of the excess so that we still have that straight line. Next, I'm going to get my edging tool from Cami Page Boutique. I use this for all of my cups. I am just adjusting the blade to the height that I need. Typically for my tumblers, if I'm doing the bottom, I put it on the second space from the bottom. If I'm doing the top rim, I put it on the first space on the bottom. So now we have a nice clean edge. If you guys do not have this, I highly recommend it. We do have a discount code, which is Damn Fancy. Next, I am going to go in with my glitter. We are going to use white linen. I picked this color because it is kind of a creamy off-white. I didn't want something super white because the vinyl had a lot of creamy colors in it, so I wanted a glitter that was going to match with that. Sometimes if you put a bright white next to a creamy color, then the creamy color can look a little dirty, and I did not want that to happen. So we're just going in with Artistry's glitter glue. I pretty much use glitter glue to apply all of my glitter. And it stays wet for quite a while. I can do a whole tumbler. I can do ombres with it. I do work fairly quick, but it is possible. So we're just sprinkling on our glitter after we get that glitter glue on. And I like to apply the glitter 2 times. Like you could see that I sprinkled it on twice, just to make sure that that glitter glue is completely covered. And then I'm just kind of cleaning up my edges, just getting any glitter off of there. And I will typically let my glitter glue dry for an hour. If it's thicker, you may need to wait a little bit longer. But after the glitter glue is dry, I will spray seal it really good. And then we're going to put 2 coats of epoxy on this tumbler. So once your second layer of epoxy has cured, we're going to take our edging tool again, and we're going to edge the top part of our tumbler. So I will take my tumbler, I will hold the rim only under hot water for about 30 seconds just to soften that rim. Then we're going to put it on our edging tool, and we're just going to edge right along that top rim. So you guys can see that typically it just peels off. Sometimes I do need to help it along the way with my nails. I think I actually only put 1 layer of epoxy on this tumbler, so the top rim was pretty thin. Typically I do 2 layers of epoxy, and I think if the epoxy is a little thicker, then this little edging technique works a little bit better. But you can still get that top rim of epoxy off. It's, I think, maybe 2 millimeters. And then we're going to take acetone, and we're just going to clean up any spray paint or glitter residue that is still on that top rim. And we're just cleaning that up, and you guys can already see how straight and smooth that top rim is, and it literally took no time at all. So now that we have our rim smooth, everything is sanded, we're going to do our decals, ink, pinstripe, and this is where the shit show begins. So I placed my decal, which was my first mistake. I should have waited to place my decal last. I don't know why I placed it first. I think I was just so excited to get this decal on, but he ends up going away. So we are going to apply some pinstripes. We're just using some chrome gold. I do have a pinstripe file on thedrunkflamingo.com that has my most popular pinstripe sizes, which is 0.07, 0.05, and 0.03. I will typically print out full sheets of pinstripes at a time. That way I have multiple sizes and multiple colors in case I want to layer them. So the first one, I'm just wrapping along the bottom. I did try to get fancy and do some pinstripe waves, like a little basket weave, and I ended up hating it, so I peeled those off, and we're just going to wrap 2 more just around the tumblers straight. And I typically just eyeball it. I just kind of place them This one was like at the base of the curve. So I could kind of eyeball that pretty well, seeing where that curve started. And I do like to cut my pinstripes at an angle, especially the metal ones. Solid colors, I'm not really that picky about, but the metal ones, if you cut it at an angle, then it kind of helps blend that edge a little bit better. Oh, and if you guys didn't know, that's my Cami Page cup holder, cup cradle, tumbler cradle. I love it because it's so compact. It also doubles as a straight edge when I need a straight line drawn on my tumbler. So now I'm happy with my vinyl, I'm happy with my pinstripes, and my original plan was to kind of make like inky clouds around the cow. And again, I should not have placed my vinyl or the pinstripes and the vinyl decal before this. So anyway, I am just using a few orange colored inks that I have just to bring out the colors and the pumpkins and the vinyl. I really wanted kind of an orange background for fall. So I'm just getting some alcohol and my little sponges that I use for inks. I am using orange, peach, and then this is a rose gold, and I have never used this rose gold as an ink before, and that was probably another mistake. I should have definitely tested it out before I used it on a tumbler. I was expecting it to blend, and it did not blend well. So I typically like to cut my sponges into like little pieces so I can use them. And I realized very quickly that I still had way too much alcohol on my sponge, and my inks were running everywhere. So this part is just sped up because this is just a hot mess. But I just want y'all to see like how something can look not good and then you can change it and it can end up looking better. So a lot of times when you think I need to strip this cup, it looks awful, you don't need to strip it and it doesn't look awful, or it may, because this looks pretty awful right now. But it can look better. This was that rose gold ink. It was not an ink, it was like an additive, and I hated it. So what I did was just wipe everything off with alcohol. I obviously took the decal off, and I was trying to figure out a way of how I wanted to salvage this, because I really just wanted an orangey background, but these inks alone were too bright. They were brighter than what I wanted. So I basically just took my inks and kind of sponged them on. And since this was a white glitter or a white background and it had been sanded, the ink was just staining the tumbler. So I didn't really have a choice. Like, I had to use some sort of orange to cover this up. So I just applied some orange ink, and then I'm just going in with a little bit of alcohol. And I was trying to kind of blend out those edges, but it just was not cooperating with me. I just wasn't getting the look how I wanted. And I still felt like this orange was too bright. So I just kept going around it with alcohol to kind of lighten that color a little bit. And I still wasn't a huge fan of it. I just didn't like it. So next I was like, well, maybe let's try to dab some white ink in there and see if we can lighten it a little bit. and I still was not loving it. It was just too much orange, and the white, even though it was white, it didn't really have an effect on the ink that was on there. So then I started thinking like, okay, well, when I wiped off the ink the first time, it stained the tumbler, so it had like an orange tint to it. So then I figured that if I try to wipe off all of this ink, it was going to stain the tumbler as well. And I thought that that may be enough color for what I was looking for. I didn't want something super bright. I didn't want a whole lot of color, which is why I opted for the inks, but they were just too bright. So I was like, all right, let's just go for it. We're just going to wipe it all off. So I clearly just start wiping off all of that ink, just kind of rubbing it into that glitter. I'm just using alcohol, I think. I think this is just alcohol, what I'm using. So I'm just kind of wiping it all off, getting all the excess off that I can get off. So then I was like, all right, so this color may not be too bad. So instead of leaving it as is, I decided to add more of the orange ink and kind of smooth it in there. I also tried to do like some rose gold veining on here. I don't know if you guys have ever used this ink before, but I really was not a fan of it. I did not like how it laid. I didn't like how it blended, like the metals or the golds. I just really didn't like it at all. So I tried to add veining with a toothpick, how I usually do, and again, I hated it. So I took all of that off. Here, I was just, I don't even know what I was doing. I was like, no, I don't like this at all. We're done. So I took that off and then got out my leafing pen, which I use more often. And I just got my dry brush and started dry brushing the gold onto the orange background. And as soon as I put that gold on there, I was like, yes, this is the answer. This is exactly what I was looking for. So we have that orange background that was basically just ink that we rubbed around with some alcohol. And then the dark rosy gold tones kind of mutes that bright orange color. So that darker color on top of the orange, I really, really liked. So I was really happy with how this was turning out. And I was super happy that I could save this cup because I thought it was so cute. So now we're going to take our tape off, which was protecting that glitter that we had and the vinyl. We didn't want any ink on that. And then there was just like a little bit of that rose gold that kind of seeped through and a little bit of the orange that seeped through, but there was nothing that I could do about that. And then I went back and added that pinstripe that I removed. And then once we get this pinstripe on, we can finally add our decal again. And if you guys did not know, I do seal my pinstripes with UV resin. You can also use clear gel nail polish. I just typically don't have any upstairs, but I will just apply the UV resin right along the edge of the pinstripe just to hold those edges down under epoxy, because we all know that these tricky vinyls like metals and holographics tend to lift under epoxy. So UV resin really helps that from happening. So here is how our tumbler turned out. I really love how it was looking. We're just going to go in with some alcohol and clean the stainless rim to make sure there's no ink on that stainless edge. And then I will epoxy 2 times. I do not seal my inks with anything. I never have, and I've never had an issue with it. So we'll just apply 2 more coats, and here is the final result. So even though this took a while to get to, I'm really happy with the end result. The inks were basically a stain for the tumbler. So if you guys want a similar look, you're just going to apply the inks to your tumbler, let it sit for a while, and then wipe it off with alcohol. And then you get kind of a muted stain on your tumbler. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and learned something, or at least were entertained. If you guys have questions, you know you are always free to ask me down below or in my groups, and I will be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group, my Drunk Flamingo Glitter group, or my Damn Fancy tribe. All are linked in the description. Thanks for watching.